Hi everybody and welcome back to the Willy St. Willy channel once again. And today what you're about to see is the first episode of my brand new true crime podcast, Willy Behind the Curtain, where I go into crimes ranging from the mundane to the unexplainable. Except it's not a real true crime podcast, it's a fake podcast, and all of the things I talk about aren't really real, so... Yes, I wanted to do something a little different just for you guys' enjoyment, and I was inspired by another YouTuber called Chase Bridges, who basically did the same thing where he would get a guest on and he would recount the tale and events to them as if it was a true crime case. In reality, it would just be an episode of Scooby-Doo. And I basically did the same thing, except instead of Scooby-Doo, I did it with Five Nights at Freddy's. And the first victim I chose is a streamer friend of mine named Captain Midden. And the thing about Midden is that he's kind of an unk. Okay, he's a primordial being ranging from the beginning of time. He's not really familiar with all of the FNAF lore. See, I do know that he's never played the games, but he is familiar with the concept and the idea and the animatronics of Five Nights at Freddy's. So I figured he'd be the perfect victim who might have a decent chance of figuring out the mystery or not figuring it out. It could go either way is what I'm saying. I figured he had about a 50-50 chance of either staying in the dark or figuring out the reality of the podcast, and what you're about to see will give you that answer. You'll see which way that coin flipped. All I had to do was I reached out and took the basic concept of FNAF and stretched it out into a true crime case where I changed details, names, and locations. Like instead of Fredbear's Family Diner, it's SHOWBIZ Pizza Palace. Instead of William Afton, it's Walter. Like things like that, you know. Because the FNAF lore is very expansive and can kind of vary a little bit, I took the basic concepts that everyone kind of universally agrees upon and used that as the basis for my true crime case, with some tweaks here or there. This is my first time really hosting a show like this, and I kind of had a few hiccups, a couple stumbles in the script, but I think it turned out pretty fun, and I hope you guys have as much fun watching it as I did filming it. So good luck to my guest, and without further ado, let's get into it. Hi everybody, and welcome to the first episode of Willy Behind the Curtain, where I examine real crimes that kind of blur the line between tragedy and the unexplainable. Now today I have my first victim, guest here, Captain Midden. He's a streamer, so you can go catch him on Twitch. I'll put that in the description below. Midden, I'm gonna ask you something. How familiar are you with the true crime community?
Are you asking how many true crimes I've committed myself? Because if so, I'm very familiar.
Well, I would love to hear the first option, but for the sake of YouTube monetization, why don't you just tell me true crime stories that you have not personally committed that you've heard about?
In that case, none. I have not heard any, so.
Okay. Obviously, I have gone over police reports, I've gone over witness reports and everything, and I've compiled this script where I'm going to tell you basically like a story, and I'm going to introduce a few characters to you, okay? Because this isn't just a normal true crime podcast or nothing where I go over events. No. This is a real whodunit, okay? You're going to have to put your thinking cap on and decide for yourself, who do you think committed the crime? There's going to be three main characters, really. So it's not like you're not picking from a plethora of people. It's really just three people you got to worry about. And, okay, you know, you can figure out the man behind the slaughter sort of sense. And yes, it is a man. It is a man. Because, you know, our beautiful queens, women, they can never do such a thing. They would never do this.
All women are queens.
Yes, of course. Yeah, for any viewers out there, for my saints, my queens listening to this right now, look at me. Look at me real quick. If you ever have one of those disgusting male humanoid pigs lay a hair on your angelic head, I will rain down hellfire upon them, the likes of which they have not seen since the creation of the earth, okay? Do you hear me? Sorry, the proud feminist in me came out, I'm sorry. I'm 6'1", by the way, ladies, and I like crystals, by the way. Anyway. The scene takes place in 1985, okay? The 80s, a real wacky decade, okay?
Real wacky.
Yeah, and it
Good music,
takes place in Hurricane, Utah, which is a small town. This is a pretty small town, okay? It's near Zion National Park, okay? And at the time, there's maybe like 10,000 people that live here. So it's pretty small. There's not that many. This isn't a big city or nothing. I'm sure everyone here has heard of Chuck E. Cheese, but for the sake of this story, many of you might not know that Chuck E. Cheese had a big rival at the time called SHOWBIZ Pizza Palace. And that is the title of our story today, the SHOWBIZ Pizza Palace Murders. For anyone who is real unks out there, if you grew up in the 80s or 90s, you might already know what I'm talking about. You know, the arcade games, the pizza, and that was terrible. That was objectively just awful, awful pizza. But they had real fun games. And if you were a kid during this time, this is the place to go to have a birthday party, okay? It was the most poppin' place. Now, SHOWBIZ Pizza Palace, if you didn't know, like Chuck E. Cheese, they had animatronic characters, like I mentioned. And there's 4 main animatronic characters they had. You know, they had Rocco the bear, Bruce the bunny, they had Candy the chicken, and Rusty the fox, and they kind of had like, basically the whole point, they would play songs and entertain the kids, you know, kind of like Chuck E. Cheese. You're probably already familiar with the concept, right? Now it's time for me to introduce to you the people behind this specific location. This restaurant, it was owned by 2 guys. It was a chain. They owned this location. They were franchisees. Now the first guy, one of the main business partners, a real genius, and it was Walter Anderson, okay? Now Walter was the creative aficionado behind, you know, the whole operation that was going on at the time. He designed that location specific animatronics. He came up with the characters. He had the shows and the songs they would play. He always liked tinkering in the back. He was very, you know, very technically inclined, and it was very, I don't say anal about every detail. It was very intense kind of guy, okay? He would be in the back, coming up with show ideas, messing with the animatronics for several hours a day, sometimes 12 to 16-hour days. He was there all the time in his workshop. For this location, he was the only technician they had, okay? His other business partner, Henry Fitzgerald, okay? He was kind of the total opposite. He wasn't very technically savvy. However, he was a businessman and the money guy and the face of the location. He handled all the finances, the franchising opportunities, and the expansion plans. And where Walter was a little more introverted, okay, he was pretty intense of a guy, right? Henry here was a very car salesman type showman, okay? He was very much a people person. He was very charismatic. He always like schmoozing with the families and the customers. He was very talkative. He was basically the guy most people would associate with the place because he was always talking to everybody. As you can probably tell, these are polar opposite dudes. You know, opposites attract, I guess. They're very handle different aspect of the business, okay? But they somehow made it work.
Might I just mention real quick how ironic it is that the first 2 characters named are Hank and Walter for our Breaking Bad fans out there?
Okay, that's kind of like I said, I did not plan it this way. I didn't even think about this. I was writing this. I did not even think about this. No, like, okay, I'm going to introduce another character later. It'd be hilarious if his name was like
Walter, like, Walter Jr. or something.
Yeah,
like
I
that.
know.
Like,
Yeah, it's like actually, dude, this is just Breaking Bad. No, I'll play, but because I'm actually I'm actually introducing you another character in the story. Okay, so we also had night security for this place, okay? Backstory, they had a couple of break-ins at the time because this location's been around for a few years and they've been doing pretty well, okay? They're very successful, and that's why Henry was talking about opening up another location and buying into the franchise again and expanding because they were doing quite well for themselves here. Pretty much because they were the only family entertainment center in like a dang like 1,500 mile radius, okay? They're like the only one. This is in Utah. There's a bunch of Mormons. So, I mean, what's there really to do besides go visit the national park and drink dirty sodas, I guess? You know, those you know, sucking Mormons. I don't know what their deal is, okay? Apologies to you Mormons out there watching. You know. So anyway, the third guy, like I mentioned, right, the night security, his name was Marcus Stevens. Now, Marcus was a local kid. He was early 20s. So he's definitely the youngest character in this story, okay? And he did the job because he was going to a local community college in the area, and this was just something he was able to get, and they were looking for somebody because they had a couple break-ins. Nothing major that they know of, just some hooligans, you know, just normal stuff like trying to, you know, throw bricks in the window or, you know, try to get in to steal food, things like that. You know, it was nothing major. Now, Marcus was kind of a quiet guy, kept to himself mostly. He would work the overnight shift, which was midnight to 6 a.m., okay? Very strange hours. Like, why are they making him stay there that late? Really weird. Basically, he was making sure no one broke in. He would watch the cameras, walk around, that kind of thing. He was not armed. He was just just Joe Schmo, like early 20s college kid. And he would just basically probably spend most of the night watching TV in the office. You know, pretty easy gig on paper, pretty easy job. So those are our three main players. Walter Anderson, the inventor, Henry Fitzgerald, our businessman, and Marcus Stevens, the security guard. So anyway, more backstory with the location. SHOWBIZ Pizza Palace opens in 1983. For the first couple years, like I mentioned, everything's going great. Everything's swimming. Oh my gosh, the birthday parties every weekend. This was the place to be. The place was printing money, okay? And Walter was constantly improving the animatronics. He was tinkering with them, and they were very, very impressive for the time. This was the 80s, but for the time, it was actually very impressive. He would add new features, program new songs into them, and Henry, like I mentioned, was already talking about opening a second location, you know, a sister location, if you will. But then things start to get a little weird, okay? Because in the spring of 1985, there is an incident, okay? This is the first incident. A kid goes missing during a birthday party. An 8-year-old boy, he's just gone. He vanishes. So he's playing arcade games, and the next minute he's gone, okay? And the parents are freaking out. They notice pretty soon after, and they start freaking out. They search the whole building, and they're asking other kids if they've seen him, and they even call the police. The police even get involved. This is the first time they get involved. The place gets shut down for the rest of the day while they're looking for the kid. After like 3 hours looking for this kid, they find him in a back storage room, and he's crying. He's completely traumatized. And the parents are trying to figure out what happened. Who took him? How did he end up back there? And the kid tells him that, and this is where it gets a little weird, okay, that there was a yellow rabbit that took him to the back room. Like someone in a costume. Now, that sounds weird, but remember, this is pretty much like Chuck E. Cheese, right? They would have mascots walking around to entertain the kids on top of the animatronic shows that were scheduled, okay?
Right.
Pretty much the same idea. The other weird detail, because that by itself isn't that weird, that like, oh, I saw like a bunny dude walking around. Okay. But the problem was that, why was he yellow? Because all the employees says that Bruce the bunny was purple, not yellow. And none of the actors, the people who worked there, were walking around in a costume like that. Like none of them. Like it was basically one that hadn't been used before.
Right.
And at first they're thinking, okay, maybe he's just, you know, making stuff up. Maybe he's just kind of traumatized for whatever reason. He is just a kid. He's an 8-year-old, okay? But he's very insistent. The kid added the detail that the yellow rabbit costume didn't seem right. He looked old and kind of withered, and like had been sitting in a basement or somewhere in the back for like years at that point. And the fur was all matted, and it smelled bad. He said it smelled really bad was the key detail in the case. For some reason, I don't know why, he just kept saying it just smelled really bad and looked gross for the costume. And his exact words were, it smelled like something died. Once the police searched the place, because they were already in the middle of doing that, they search all the closets, all the storage areas, because it's a pretty decent sized place. And they do find a back room that had been converted into a kind of workshop that they assumed one of the Walt or Henry had been using. And they find the yellow rabbit costume. It is old and stained. It definitely wasn't it was not one of the official characters. And it looked handmade. And whoever made it, they clearly weren't like a professional costume designer from the SHOWBIZ Corporation, basically. Obviously, they assume Walter is the prime suspect because he's the tech. He's like their main tech that has access to the back room, okay? And they bring him in for questioning. And Walter admits that, yeah, he made that costume years ago. It was a prototype before he settled on the 4 main characters. But he had claimed to not have used it in several years. Like, basically, it was just in storage. So he claims that he wasn't using it. And obviously during the questioning, Walter says, I wasn't anywhere near the kid. I didn't touch the kid, you know, nothing like that. I didn't lure him in the back. Nothing. Like, I don't know what he's talking about. Like, nothing happened. I was up here in the front the whole time. Here's the thing. Walter did have an alibi, because he was in the front working on one of the Pac-Man machines at the time, basically doing maintenance on it because it was broken. Right. So he does have an alibi. A couple other employees saw him doing that around the time the kid went missing. So the police basically can't charge anyone with anything. The kid wasn't physically harmed, so they can't really do anything other than just kind of basically talk tough. Basically, they can't really. There's no crime really happened other than he went missing for, you know, like several hours. This is where Henry gets involved. Henry, naturally, is freaking out about this whole thing because this is very bad press. A kid went missing during business hours. That's not going to be good because, well, he's worried about lawsuits. He's worried about papers, you know, stories in the local paper. He's worried that this is going to greatly decrease sales and it's going to really hurt the business. And basically his solution is, I have to increase security at parties, I have to throw out all the old costumes, I have to hire more staff. Basically, he's going over the top and he wants to install all these extra cameras and all these security features because he's naturally worried that he doesn't want any bad press or lawsuits for the location. Now, Walter thinks he's overreacting. Walter thinks he's just, basically he thinks he's being too extra, basically. But lo and behold, they do get more cameras. They do hire a few extra people. So Walter does get his way, basically, in the end. As you might imagine, this causes even more tension between Walter and Henry, okay? They weren't, you know, the best people to get along together. They weren't at the, you know, they didn't have a very good relationship to begin with, okay? They were very rocky, and this has kind of added more tension to him. Henry thinks Walter is being too reckless and irresponsible. He thinks he's being too careless with this. And then Walter thinks Henry's just being paranoid. And meanwhile, the newly hired Marcus Stevens, the night security guard, starts reporting some weird activities during his late night shifts, okay? During the nights, during the weekdays, he is there from midnight to 6 a.m. Marcus says he reports hearing weird noises during his shifts and that animatronics are in different positions than they were supposed to be when, you know, the business closed. Basically, he's implying, without having seen it himself, that they're moving, basically. He's implying that. And as far as he knows, he's the only one there. And you have to understand something. These animatronics in the 80s, they're basically just like robots that are on a track with very simple programming. So they wouldn't, all their movements were very stiff and limited. They couldn't really do anything that was specifically programmed, because this is very archaic kind of level of animatronics versus what we have today. Like something you see at Universal with a giant wolf man. Okay, this is very archaic compared to that. That by itself is just weird. He's like, wait a minute, how are these animatronics moving by themselves? How, like, why am I hearing these weird noises whereas when I first started, nothing happened?
I would not work this job.
Yeah. Marcus is basically, he's calling, because he doesn't just let this go. He's calling Henry at like 2 or 3 in the morning saying that he can hear characters moving around making noise. He can hear footsteps on the stage, creaking and mechanical whirring, and he says how Rocco the bear's head turns toward him when he walked past the stage. This is what Marcus said, like, in the report. This is what he's saying. No one else has verified this. It's just Marcus saying this. Mm-hmm. But
it's in a filed report.
Yes, he that is what he's claiming. He also claimed that Rusty the Fox was peeking out from behind the curtain in the Pirate Cove area that he stayed at. As you might imagine, this freaked him out, okay? Because the animatronics are supposed to be completely powered off at the time. The only other explanation is that the animatronics somehow moved by themselves or someone else was there with Marcus. Henry thinks Marcus is just pranking him or losing his mind or that he's high. Well, what other explanation is there? Like he watched a horror movie while he's in the security room and he's high and he starts seeing things or saying things.
Just hallucinating.
They kind of just, you know, let it go. They're like, okay, dude, you're just crazy. I don't know what to tell you. Like, because he's on the phone with him, calling in the middle of the night, telling him this kind of stuff. Okay, and he basically tells him to don't call me again unless a real emergency happens, like a break-in or a fire, like something important. Funny thing is, that's Henry's reaction. Walter, on the other hand, is really quiet about this. It's noted that his behavior was odd. Like his reaction to being told this was odd. It wasn't like Henry where he was kind of laughing it off, basically. Walter was very odd about this in his reaction. Was very quiet. It didn't really want to add much to Marcus's story. Some employees said that Walter sometimes sleeps in his workshop. Like he doesn't go home. So they're thinking maybe he's asleep in the workshop and maybe that's why he's acting weird about this, because maybe he's working on things. And Walter does confirm this. He says he's always in the back fixing things, improving the programming, making adjustments at the servos. And the difference is that he's being extra secretive about this, because before, not that many people would go into his workshop just because none of them were techs. But now he's like not wanting people to go in the workshop. He's being very secretive about what he's doing, which is very odd. That put up a lot of red flags. Now, because it got to the point where he's basically putting locks on his workshop, basically, where when he wouldn't be there, when he would leave.
Interesting. So he was never doing that before.
No, not to that extent. No.
When was it that Marcus was hired?
This was immediately after the disappearance of the first child, and they were recovered.
So Marcus was not hired until after then.
He was hired immediately after that, because that's when they posted the job listing for the night security. Because it was that it was a couple break-ins they had previously from vandalism on the outside of the the location, and then that instance where a child went missing for several hours, that basically made Henry freak out and want a night security. Basically, it was one of his. He was being extra as one of his extra steps, and as well installing the cameras. Now the cameras at the time were kind of crap, like they were kind of grainy, so you can't really see much on them. They were in black and white, and were kind of grainy. They basically were just there just as confirmation if someone would break in, basically, so they weren't very reliable in terms of seeing specific details of things going on. They weren't very reliable cameras.
Okay, got it.
Now here is where things get really disturbing. This is probably the penultimate moment in the story. Now, around the same time this is all going on, okay, this goes on for a couple weeks. This is gonna be baffling, but around the same time, 4 kids go missing over the span of about 6 months. And it's the same thing every time. It's a busy day at SHOWBIZ Pizza Palace. Like, it's during the day when people are there. There is a birthday party and there's loads of kids running around, place is packed, and a parent will just realize a kid of theirs is gone after like several hours, because this is also the 80s. Parents probably weren't the most attentive. A lot of times they would drop kids off there and leave and then come back, things like that.
Yeah,
but
run rampant, have fun, see you later.
Yes, exactly. But a parent would come back or just be there and realize their kid is gone. They're just gone. They have no idea. And the same thing happens again. Police search the place. They check the bathrooms. They check everything. They check the storage rooms. But this time they don't find them at all. They don't find any of the kids each time this happens. The first 2 times the police search the building, they search surrounding area, issue Amber Alerts, all that. And they interview anyone and everybody. They close the restaurant down, check security footage, all of that. They find nothing to go on substantially. Now, at this point, obviously, as you can imagine, the police are taking this rather seriously, because this isn't just a weird incident anymore. These are like kids that are gone. It's obviously a pattern at this point. Kids have gone missing several months apart at the same location around the same time of day. This is a pattern. This is not just coincidence anymore. And they bring in Walter for questioning again, multiple times actually, and they grill him for several hours, and they search his workshop, and they search his house, and they'll try to look for any evidence that might connect him, because Walter is their prime suspect at this time. But the thing is though, they have nothing on him. They can just detain him and that's it. They have no evidence that shows that he's responsible for this. And they question Henry as well. And they question Marcus as well. When they interview Marcus, they ask him, does he see anything on his overnight shift? Has he seen anyone break in? Has he noticed anything, amiss, anything hanging around not supposed to? And he tells them all the animatronic stuff, including just any other mundane things. But he tells them all of the weird animatronic stuff, and they think he's crazy, obviously. So they're like, okay, bud, all right. Now, they obviously interview every single employee at the SHOWBIZ Pizza Palace, every teenager, that works the counter, literally everybody, anyone and everybody. Every performer in the costumes, everybody, and they still find nothing. There is no evidence connecting any one of the disappearances yet. Now, obviously, when the police are searching everything, they search all Marcus's workshop, and they look through his blueprints and everything, but there's no evidence, there's no blood, there's no real sign of children ever even being there. And I know this is the 80s. They had things like blood splatter analysis, but they didn't really have advanced DNA results. They didn't have advanced like forensics. This is, pretty archaic compared to what we have now. And they still find nothing, and they can't really prove or pin anything on anybody. And as you can imagine, business tanks. No one wants to go there now, basically, as you could probably imagine. Parents don't want to take their kids there anymore.
I wouldn't.
And, so by the fall of 1985, they're barely getting any customers. They might get 1 or 2 birthday parties, like every couple weeks, but that's like it. Like, you'll have basically empty arcades, animatronics performing for nobody. Pretty liminal type area at this point. Now, Henry obviously is freaking out. He's trying to do damage control. He's talking to the media. He's saying they're cooperating with the police. He's basically doing everything he can to try to keep the business afloat and make them look good. But nobody wants to come anymore. It doesn't work, basically. And Henry basically blames Walter for everything. He's like, this is all your fault. He's blaming him blaming him for acting like a freak, basically. He's basically blaming it all on him. Even though no one knows yet anything about the kids disappearing, they just know they're gone. Yeah. Henry is understandably frustrated and just wants to pin it on somebody. He basically is blaming everything on Walter. Walter, on the other hand, starts to become really obsessed with his work, and this is where things get even more weird. Walter was basically acting like a complete maniac at this point. He'd be there all night, every night. He wouldn't even pretend to go home. He would be talking to the animatronics, like he would talk to them as if they were real, like as if they were just people. He would have a conversation with them. One employee even said that they walked in on Walter arguing with Rocco the bear, like standing there in front of the stage, having a full heated argument with a robot. The employee couldn't hear most of what he was saying, but he caught phrases like putting them to rest, or I didn't mean for this to happen, or I can't believe it happened this way. Like things like that he was saying. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, but it's the fact that he's trying to have a conversation with a damn robot animatronic is just really weird.
Right,
and
cracking.
They would also see him cry in front of the animatronics too. Like basically he would just act like a complete maniac. This is just, okay, this is just, it's basically comical at this point, right? It's just so weird how out of touch he is at this point. Now it's November 1985. So a couple months after that go by. And the restaurant basically is, it might as well just be closed down at this point. They technically still have business hours, but no one really goes there anymore. This is the point where Marcus stops showing up for work, and they try to reach out to him. They call him. They even go to his place. Nothing. He's just gone. But the weird part is his stuff's still there. Kinda weird.
Kinda suspicious.
And Marcus's parents file a missing person report after about a day or two. And the police investigate, and there's no sign of him. And like I said, his apartment looks like it was just walked out of. You know, like he didn't take anything. There's no sign of a struggle. His car is still in the parking lot. He's just gone. And now at this point, okay, with the security guard also missing, who was a local college kid, they basically assume that something had to have happened to him at the restaurant. Like that's the conclusion they can come to. Like maybe he saw something, or maybe he was confronted by somebody, or maybe he's responsible for the kids, or maybe he became a victim himself. No one really knows. There's all sorts of speculation and a lot of rumors going around at this point. The police do one final massive search of SHOWBIZ Pizza Palace, and they're tearing the place apart. They're literally ripping up floorboards at this point. They have a team of people coming in, and they're checking crawl spaces, they're checking every inch of the place, but they don't really find much except for one thing. And it's not something you would expect. In the back room, in Walter's workshop, they find detailed schematics and drawings and designs for animatronics that are pretty dark, disturbing, very out of the ordinary. Drawings of animatronic characters that look like they have human bodies inside of them. Once they find this, basically, they're horrified, and they take this evidence, and they get a warrant to immediately start dismantling the animatronics, like including the ones on the stage and the prototype ones that were on the back that were just endoskeleton like frames basically. And then they start with Rocco the bear. They remove the outer shell and take apart the matted fur and the mechanical components and examine every inch of the interior. What do you think they find inside of Rocco the bear?
I would assume one of the bodies of the children that went missing.
You are correct. They find a child's body inside of the animatronic, like stuffed in there inside the endoskeleton of the animatronic.
Yikes.
And then they search the other animatronic that remained stage characters, and they find the bodies of the missing kids in the 4 main animatronics. What are your thoughts so far? I'll take a break for you. I've been yapping for a minute. What are your thoughts so far on this?
So obviously Walter is the prime suspect based on all the details that have been provided so far. It's easy to see that the police view him as the most likely suspect just based on his experience with the animatronics, his behavior, stuff that they found with the schematics, and the fact that the bodies have been hidden there. Like, no one is as involved with the animatronics as he is, except for Marcus, who is there for 6 to 6.5 hours every evening while no one else is, except when Walter starts to stay overnight. So, but can't completely rule out Henry either. Just because there hasn't been much mention about Henry's involvement with the animatronics doesn't mean he may not necessarily be the murderer either.
This is true.
He could just be using that to his advantage, and the fact, like, okay, like I'm the guy out front, I'm the face of the place. There's no way I could be suspected as the person who would do something like this, much less use this as the spot to hide the bodies.
Yeah,
so
you're thinking there's a chance that Henry's basically trying to gaslight him, give the old, 1-2, buckle my shoe juke, and like trick people basically to thinking that it's Walter because he's kind of weird.
Hide in plain sight. It's very possible.
Okay. Okay. All right. I'll fast forward a little bit to December 1985. And as you probably could have guessed, Showbiz Pizza Palace is closed. It's gone. It is bankrupt, and basically Henry is trying to salvage what he can financially from the place. Henry Fitzgerald was pretty hesitant to do public interviews about this whole incident for several years, but in 1993, he was asked about Walter in an interview. He said, Walter loved those robots more than he ever loved any person. I think toward the end, he believed they were actually alive, and I think he wanted to make that belief a reality no matter what it took. Another detail I wanted to add, during the final search of Showbiz Pizza Palace when the police discovered the bodies, there was a rather odd eyewitness account that really stuck out to me from one of the officers on the scene. When they were searching the animatronics, one of the officers claimed that despite the animatronics being powered down, he was able to hear strange mechanical whirring and clicking. And he also claimed to hear a distorted voice coming from Rusty, the fox specifically, almost like a sound coming through a broken speaker that says, help me. And he chalked it up to maybe it was a recording that triggered somehow, like from leftover audio files in the robot's programming, or maybe he hallucinated it because it was a creepy ass place at this point because the place was basically closed down and it was, you know, there's animatronics there in a very liminal, quiet area with the police investigating. So he's like, maybe my mind's playing tricks on me, but he did say that in the report. So I thought that was very odd.
Right.
It could be just coincidence. Could it be something explainable? But maybe it isn't. Maybe it is something paranormal. I don't know. Maybe that animatronic was inviting the police officer to join him. I don't know. To join the animatronic family. I don't know. I'm just putting that information out there. That was pretty much the case. What I just told you. That was pretty much it. Obviously, there are some details, like I said, I left out, but I want you to try to use what I gave you to figure out who you think did it. And I'll do a little recap. You know, we have suspect number 1, Walter Anderson, the inventor and co-owner, you know, of the Showbiz Pizza Palace and of the animatronics, as he was the main technician. He had made the creepy yellow rabbit costume. He had access to the building at all times. He was acting increasingly unhinged toward the end, and he was talking to the robots, crying in front of them, always in his workshop. And, you know, the disturbing drawings were found in his workshop, including, you know, the animatronical drawings of bodies inside of the animatronics, even plans for future animatronics and future events he would have. There was one titled Chop 87. I don't know what that means, but that's just kind of what, for some reason, what the schizo rambling drawings were. I don't know what that means. But here's the problem. He had alibis for at least some of the disappearances. Obviously, Walter is pretty prime suspect number 1 because, you know, he is kind of a wacko. He's kind of a wacky dude, but he was always kind of that way. It was always a little weird.
Yeah.
Now, for Henry Fitzgerald, the businessman and co-owner of Showbiz Pizza Palace, he had access to the building at all times, just like Walter did. He was under extreme financial stress as the business started failing. And, you know, that could have some other explanations. Like maybe he was trying to sabotage his own restaurant for the insurance money. Maybe he was framing Walter, as you mentioned. He definitely had a motive to try to shut the place down when he realized he couldn't financially recover, you know, from the bad publicity. And he and Walter were fighting constantly. They were always at each other's throats. They, you know, very strained relationship. Maybe he was behind the disappearances. Maybe he was trying to destroy the business and was trying to frame Walter. Who knows? But here's the thing, though. Why would he destroy his own livelihood? He has just as much to lose, if not more, than Walter did. In later interviews, he did seem genuinely traumatized by events. So, you know, it doesn't leave room for interpretation. Doesn't really fit the profile of a maniac that way. But, you know, then I'm just giving you the details I have, okay? Marcus Stevens, the night security guard. He had access to the building every night. He was completely alone, as far as we knew. He was the one reporting strange incidents with the animatronics. But what if he was making it up? What if he was? What if he was trying to deflect suspicion away from himself? He was, you know, young, very isolated, working overnight shifts at a creepy restaurant. Maybe something happened. Maybe he snapped. Maybe he was the one wearing the rabbit costume. Maybe he was luring kids in the back rooms. Maybe he was getting rid of evidence during night shifts. And then he disappears right when the police are closing in. Maybe he realized he was about to get caught. And another detail I neglected to mention was he was still missing to this day. He was never found. Marcus was never found. No body, no nothing. Marcus was never found. Now, obviously, those are your 3 main suspects. Okay? One of them is guilty. Okay? One of them is guilty, or, you know, maybe this was some sort of paranormal event. Okay? I don't know. This is spooky stuff happened in this story. Okay?
Pretty spooky.
But like I said, I know the conclusion that the investigators came to. I want to see what conclusion you come to.
Couple additional questions.
Okay, go ahead.
I cannot remember if you disclosed this or not, but what happened to Walter after the restaurant closed?
I did not disclose that. I also didn't disclose what happened to Henry either. I did not disclose what happened to him ultimately. I mentioned an interview Henry did, but man, that could have been in prison, or that could have been in just years later. We don't know.
And the fact that that interview occurred 8 years after the fact.
Yes.
So you said it was in 93?
Yes. I basically took the interview out of context of what the interview was. So I just want to add that weird detail of Henry describing Walter. I thought it was funny.
What were Walter and Henry feuding over?
Well, initially it was because just normal business partner arguments, because they were very different people and they would argue all the time. They never got along. And then Henry would argue a lot with Walter because Walter was frankly acting like a damn freak, like a schizo. And he basically was really upset with him. He was always pissed at him because he was always doing some weird crap, basically. And generally speaking, that's basically most of the time what they were arguing about. Obviously, when the disappearances happened, that strained things even more, and they argued even more. So it would all stem from that.
Okay. So Marcus just straight up disappears after the restaurant closes.
Yes.
He's still gone to this day.
Yes, he's missing. But just because that is doesn't mean that the investigators didn't come to a conclusion about him or anything. Like I said, they came to a conclusion with the evidence, but
right.
I'm just pointing that out there.
Well, the obvious answer is Walter was still who they ultimately came to the conclusion of being guilty because of the schematics, his behavior, them finding the children's bodies within the animatronics. That would be the obvious answer to me. But something's telling me that Walter was ultimately framed.
What makes you think he was framed? Do you think he was framed?
I think he's the easy scapegoat because he was already strange to begin with.
Okay.
Like, a lot of this was already, like, known about him. Sure, it was aggravated throughout the events of everything that happened in 1985. But there's something that's telling me he was an easy scapegoat for somebody else.
So you're basically thinking that he was framed. That's what you're kind of leaning towards?
Yeah. I mean, who knows? Maybe I can't think of any motive that Marcus would have had aside from maybe like he was coerced into going along with somebody else's plan. Maybe it was Henry. Maybe Henry was just fed up with dealing with Walter to a point, and for some reason, just it wasn't known to a lot of people that despite the face that he was putting on every day for the sake of the business, he was actually just a complete sociopath and did what he did to the kids as a way to just get out of the business without just having the complete shame of having a failed business. I don't know. There's a lot of details I'm trying to go off of and stuff that I feel like I'm going to have disclosed to me here soon. That might tell me I'm right, might tell me I'm wrong. I don't know.
Okay. Like I said, I might have made this, like, you might be on the right track or you might be overthinking it. Because like I said, I know I gave you only a few choices. Like, I know I made the joke with the paranormal stuff too, but one of them is the man behind the slaughter. One of them is. Of
everything that I've heard, something is making me most suspicious of Henry.
Henry Fitzgerald, that's him?
Ultimately. He is the one I am most suspicious of. Because, again, while Walter is the most likely suspect based on everything that is just thrown right into your face, there's just something about Henry that just seems a little suspicious.
You just, man, what did Henry do to you, man? What did Henry do to you?
He he ruined my boy Walter. That's what.
Man, are you gonna lock in your answer?
I will lock in on Henry.
Okay, that's your final answer.
Yeah.
Well, Cab Midden, old Midden. Well, you're kind of wrong in two ways. One, Walter did it. He was the technician, the inventor. He did it. He is the man behind the slaughter. But I haven't been entirely honest with you for this video. You see, even though SHOWBIZ Pizza Palace was a real restaurant chain, and Utah obviously is a real state, this is not a real true crime case.
Hmm.
Why don't you go open the video I just sent you? I just texted you right now. Why don't you open that and tell me what you see?
Five Nights at Freddy's 2 song, The Living Tombstone.
Yes, the plot I have just described to you was the plot of Five Nights at Freddy's. I made some tweaks to the story, changed some details, added some details, but for the most part, the story I just described to you was the plot of Five Nights at Freddy's. Like Rocco the Bear, that was Freddy Fazbear.
I should have known.
Bruce the Bunny was Bonnie. Candy the Chicken was Chica. And Rusty the Fox was Foxy. And Walter Anderson was William Afton, the child, killer in the game. And, a tinker with animatronics and all that. Henry Fitzgerald was Henry Emily, was his business partner in the game, in the lore of the game. And Marcus Stevens was Mike Schmidt, the security guard from like the first game. And Showbiz Pizza Palace was, as you guessed it, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria, or Fred Bear's Family Diner, interchangeable, I don't really care. I just adjusted some of the details and presented to you as if it was a real unsolved true crime case. And there were
Is it obvious now that I've never played any of the games or seen either of the movies?
I knew you never played the games. I thought you saw one of the movies, but I was confident enough that I could change it just enough where you wouldn't really know it was Five Nights at Freddy's. Because I chose a popular IP to make this where I'm like, you might actually just straight up know what I'm talking about. Like this, basically, if you at any point had said, man, this sounds just like Five Nights at Freddy's, you would have won the game. You would have been like, you would have beat me. You would have won the game. Because
I was this close to saying it at one point too, but I refrained. This man.
So
no, it wouldn't have been a confident comment though, because I would have said it like very curiously. It's like this sounds like a lot like Five Nights at Freddy's for some reason.
If you had said anything like that, I would not have lied to you at any point. I would not have said, oh no, this is real. I would never have said confirmed yes or no if it's real or not. I basically would have been like, this does sound pretty fantastical, doesn't it? Like this does sound pretty. Like I would have been like that. I wouldn't have been like, no, it's not. I would have let you just get that, like, stab that into it. I would have let you get that.
Right.
But I remember when you said the Breaking Bad comparison, I thought it was pretty funny because I was like, well, this is a fictional story, but it's not Breaking Bad. Five Nights at Walter's. Five Nights at Walter's. Yeah. And so just so you know, I was inspired by another YouTuber who had basically made same thing, but it was like a true crime setup, except instead of FNAF, it was Scooby-Doo. He basically would describe a Scooby-Doo episode to them and see if they can figure it out. And,
that's sick.
And I did want to do that with you because one, I want to make the video a little different, but also I feel like you would have gotten it too easily if I just picked a Scooby-Doo episode. You probably would have got it too easily. So I'm like, no.
I would have.
I also thought about picking an episode of Supernatural, but I didn't know if you had actually seen any of that show. So I'm like, nah, I'm not gonna pick Supernatural. Now,
Scoob, these animatronics sound really sus.
Dude, honestly, I can imagine that too. Like, honestly, if I could have picked a Scooby-Doo episode and you wouldn't have figured it out, I would have laughed. Like, I would have like it's actually Scooby-Doo.
Right.
But basically, I just changed details like where it takes place, the names, some of the details, like the detail of the one kid going missing and being found. I was trying to make that as like, there was one of the games had like a crying child that like was like the daughter of like, I think it was like Henry or something like that, where it was like basically she didn't die until later and she was found. Like, but I basically was trying to for the sake of the story, I was drawing it out.
You orchestrated that well. I felt like I was catching on strictly based on like the characters of the animatronics and such, but beyond that, like I didn't have a clue. So
yeah, and that was what I was counting on. That's why I kept upping the ante. When I introduced like the night guard part, the haunted animatronics part, I was like introducing elements like that where I'm like, okay, he might figure it out at this point. This is getting a little too over the top. So, dude, I had like, what's funny? Some of the parts of my script I had to not read because it would give it away too much. I'm like, no, I can't just say this. I thought I had you going pretty good. I think you came close here or there. Like you did not win the game of my fake podcast, my fake true crime podcast, Willy Behind the Curtain. But now that the secret is out and this wasn't a real true crime case, if I do this again, I'll probably make it different. Or I might tell more than one story, and one of them is a real true crime case, and one of them isn't. I might just change things up that way if I ever do this again.
Well, I lost Guy, so I guess it's time for me to get stuffed into an animatronic. So.
Yes, you did not survive the night. You did not survive all Five Nights at Freddy's. You did not make it to 6 a.m. You died.
If anyone finds me in your local Chuck E. Cheese, I guess go ahead and call the cops. So
for anyone watching this, if they watch the whole thing, I sprinkled in some FNAF references here or there. Like when I said sister location or the 12 to 6 a.m. or the man behind the slaughter, like things like that. I was like, okay, these are like little FNAF references that people might pick up on. But
clearly,
yeah.
I did not. So.
Yeah. Well, there you go. That was the build-up to, me stringing you along, me edging you with this. When I told you this idea, don't beat yourself up too bad, okay? You did great. You did great. However, I'm surprised you didn't. I think you overthought who the killer was. I made it pretty obvious
I think
Walter did it. I was like,
yeah.
I didn't know how to make it more, less obvious or something. I was like, maybe I should add this detail, but I'm like, no, then he's definitely not going to get it. So I'm like,
It is purely based off the fact that I literally know nothing about Five Nights at Freddy's aside from the name itself. That's it. Just. So.
Well, you thought it was too obvious too.
I can't even say that. I literally know nothing about FNAF. So
no, I meant for the killer. Like you thought the killer was too obvious. Like, oh, it can't be him.
Yeah.
No, you are the perfect guinea pig for the FNAF experiment because we're both unks. So it's like, people I knew because I played the games growing up and all that, and the Matt Pat videos and watch Markiplier play the games and saw the movie, so I knew all about FNAF. But I feel like anyone else in our 20s, they wouldn't know it's FNAF. They would know too easily that I'm just telling them Five Nights at Freddy's. So,
I can't wait for this video to drop now with all the FNAF fans in your comment section just God, what an idiot.
Like how does he not know? Hopefully this turns out good. Like I said, I'm not planning on editing this one. I'm probably gonna send it to my boy Remedy. He's probably gonna be watching this, and he's a goat.
Shout out to Remedy.
He edited a video for me before. He did a really good job. I'll say it. He's a better editor than me. I'll say it.
This is cool to be able to be in a second video of yours. I wonder if any fans of your channel will recognize the first one I'm in.
They might. Honestly, if that happens, I would be surprised because that one video that we were in with the ghost hunting thing, it got 2 people and their grandma watching the video. And that's basically it because it didn't do very well. I think it got maybe a few thousand views, I guess.
I better see you in the comment section, Granny. I better.
Yeah. Bro, she's a big fan of yours. I'll tell you right now. She took her dentures out and she has a couple ideas of what to do with them. I won't say anymore. She has a couple ideas. All right, I won't torch you anymore. You did well, champ. You did such a good job, champ. I'm so proud of you. You did so good.
Thank you, Saint Willy. Thank you.
Not just anyone can listen to this and still get the killer wrong at the end, but I'm playing. I'm joshing. I'm joking.
Well, I appreciate you having me, man. I had fun with it.
For everyone who's still watching this, I don't know if anyone's actually going to get to this point of the video at the end, but thank you, as always, for watching. Your support always means the world. Go support Captain Mitten on his streams. Go check out Remedy's channel. He makes awesome videos as well, and he's a great editor. And just in case I don't see you, stay safe and just have a good one, and maybe click on another video that I have put at the end here. I don't know which one I'm going to pick. It's a surprise. It's to surprise me just as much as you. So, all right. Goodbye. Goodbye.
Deuces.